All right, let's talk Hackmotion today. All the wee sensor that goes on the wrist, you've seen it everywhere. This review is going to be as honest as I can possibly make it. Yes, if you click the link and then you use the discount code, I'm going to clip the ticket, which makes it very advantageous for me to try and sell the product to you. But I will try and be as honest as I possibly can be about the pros, the cons, what I think, who is it really for, how does it function, is it going to be any value to you? All right, so number one, what does it actually do? Because you're going to see those clips where it has shows the promise of the little changing of wrist extension and flexion and the ball going from being a wild slice to then magically perfect. Does it actually do that? Honest answer, halfway. When your wrists are going from extension to flexion, generally speaking, the club face is going from an open position to a closed position. As far as club data goes and all the data points in golf, we always say face is king. So it is affecting or giving you feedback without having a launch monitor as to the one area, your wrists, your steering wheel effectively, on where the face will potentially be. And if you are a player who has a lot of extension through impact, so you're scooping, chicken wing, all that exciting stuff, it is going to give you feedback as to, hey, look, you're doing it every time. And then when you're swinging, you'll be able to slowly but surely start to feel the lead wrist going into more of a flat wrist scenario, which should be a slightly more closed or squarer face, which should thus reduce your face to path being open or your slice to the right. So it will certainly help, it will give you feedback, but it's not going to magically strap it on and dead straight. You can still hit shots right, you can still hit shots left with a flat lead wrist, because it is missing one thing at the moment, and I feel like in future, I've spoken to the boys there and it sounds like they're open to the idea. I assume at some point it will have a hand path as well as wrist conditions, and as soon as you have hand path, we'll give you some idea of swing direction, which will then give you some idea of path. Then you have some path in relationship to face, you have a face to path relationship. It's going to start to help players that say you come over the top, it'll start to give you a feedback of, oh, your hand path is too much outside here, or matching up the relationship of a hand path that's outside to a more flexed lead wrist to a hand path that's slightly more neutral to a more flat lead wrist, or even an inside hand path with a slightly more extended lead wrist. It'll start to have all those matchups. So it is a great feedback loop tool to improve your sensation of where your wrists are, but it's not going to make you strap it on and make you perfect straight away. As for, so number one, we've got to address that. Is it valuable? Yes. It's giving you very accurate feedback on where your wrists are throughout the action. How accurate? Depends on how well you calibrate it. That's another whole story. But it certainly provides accurate feedback. Next thing, big thing for me anyways, would be who is it for? Is it for a beginner? Is it for an engaged golfer? Is it for a golf coach? Now there are three versions of membership. There's a core, a pro, and a plus, I'm guessing. Now the basic core would come with just the real basic guided practice stuff, but honestly for a beginner it's a really useful tool. Are there other substitutes that for a beginner would be helpful? Yes, you've got Prosendr's really good for getting awareness of what your wrists are doing, Tour Striker, the Educator, a simple coat hanger. There's lots of things that can give you some idea of what does a flat lead wrist feel like and what is it like to keep it there. So there's certainly going to be that. However, this does have a massive benefit in the style of feedback it's giving you. It's not just not something like with a Prosendr or something that you put it in the slot and then you having to it's in the slot. Here you're having to do it yourself. Let me connect this up here and also show you how quickly the calibration process is. It's on. I've just got the version with no glove, so I've put it on, get my wrists as what I feel right-handed. Yep, let's go calibration. That feels to me. Now, obviously, every time you put it on, if your wrists are in a different place, or if you put the monitor in a slightly different place, it's going to give you slightly different percentages. However, there's a little kicker to that, which I'll explain in a second. But it'll give you slightly different percentages, however you put this on. And if you're hitting balls, while you're hitting balls, if it moves a tiny bit on your glove or on your hand, during the practice session, it's going to start giving you some funky numbers. But you'll obviously be aware of it, and then recalibration takes like 2 seconds. So if I hold it down, I think, yep, that to me is pretty level, cool. And then you kick it to 45 degrees, 30 to 45 degrees. And that's the calibration done. And then you can start to see your wrist is flippy flappy. You say that feels flat right there. And you go, oh, that's pretty damn close to what feels flat to me. And when I talk to them, it's literally a feel thing. So sensation-wise, now we can see there we're talking extension, flat, and then a flexion. So effectively a cupped and a bowed lead wrist. Now, when you get into the free practice version, there's also ulnar deviation, which is now we're starting to talk about the wrist action this way. But we'll get to that later on. But basically this simple understanding, when you make a swing and it gives you a feedback as to where you're at, good, bad, or ugly, it has some very cool feedback. So I better hit a ball here and then we'll continue with this. Okay, so we hit a ball. Did that ball go straight? Yeah, it was a little draw. Nice. Now, you can see here that instantly when you hit a ball, it gives you some feedback where you are at the top, where you are at impact. Now, what I have found in this guided mode is every time it's encouraging a player move a series of preferences. You're going to start with standard strong grip or a standard grip, and then as you're going back, your wrist's going to get more into, what if I go 2D, it's going to explain. Yeah, cool. So it's going to start with some extension, and then as you're going back, you're going to find it more flat lead wrist at the top, and then as you're coming down, it's going to encourage you to have a slightly more bowed at impact. Now, when it gets into the free form practice, as a tool, it is unbelievable. That's more when we're talking about for golf coaches or seriously engaged players, but that's the basic guided practice, which is encouraging, and that's your swing pattern like a Tommy Fleetwood or a Tiger Woods, you know, the Adam Scott, very much your traditional wrist action where it's just doing that nice basic move. So if you're a player that has heaps of cup at the top and you don't like that, or this elbow flares out and you want to find a more flatter wrist position, this thing is going to help you a ton, especially when it comes to how it does the training. But even in here, I can go into here and I can go whack on feedback, and suddenly I know where flat lead wrist feels like. So when I'm hitting balls, I can just stand there and I can have a backswing, and as soon as I get the feedback, this is now buzzing. Wow, cool. Instant feedback with both acoustic or auditory and kinesthetic, which is through my, can actually feel it going like this. And then I could choose biofeedback instead of impact, and then it can only have that when I get to impact. Now obviously when you're swinging, you only impact for a millisecond, but it does mean you can have practice rehearsals and feel where is good impact alignments. So that alone in the basic guided feedback for people learning, or good players, or golf coaches learning or trying to teach players what does it feel like to do certain things without having to stick stuff on the club or on their hand. Yes, I'm sticking something on here, but this is super lightweight and the feedback's instant and it's acoustic and it's kinesthetic. So you've got some really cool learning tools. Is it visual? Oh, yeah, you can look at video. It is the visual, I suppose, right on the phone, right? So it's got all three learning styles pumping at you, and you're starting to get awareness of what those all feel like. Cool, let's turn that off. So it's giving you all this feedback for the entry-level basic player. Amazing tool. As far as learning this, I've already mentioned it does not give you any awareness of club path. But if you get your wrists in a better position at the top, or as you're starting down, you're starting to get those wrists flattening out, the chances of flattening your wrists and coming over the top are pretty low, whereas getting your wrists to shallow and then the club coming more from the inside, exceptionally high. So it will create some positive swing patterns, will create more angle of attack by not having so much scoopy extension through impact as a feedback tool. So for beginners, I can see some massive value in there, especially if you don't want to go and get a golf lesson or if you're frustrated with that. Learning golf, brilliant. Now, for an engaged, experienced player, I'm talking anyone who's playing golf 2-3 times a week, a teen handicapper, like a 14, 15, all the way down to scratch, or even an elite player. The guided practice is going to be semi-beneficial, but you guys are going to definitely be more in the, starting to look in the realms of like the free practice, aka the free form. And this is where you start to get into the juice of the software is just wild. So you can just go continue, but we could benchmark your swings against any series of things. So if you are more the guy who likes to have a lot of flexion at the top, and then you want to, as you're coming through, you actually like to have your wrists going into more of a neutral situation, as opposed to going from a cupped to slightly cupped to flattened impact. So instead of being this guy, you want to be more like the Dustin Johnson, or if that's your preferable release pattern, which is totally fine. That pattern is in here. DJ's flexion pattern is in here, and there's a ton of other swings and patterns and models that are going on. So when it comes to being the technical side of it, and if you want to delve into all that stuff, wow, it is wild how much it does there. So we go to Scotty's thing, yep, continue, blah, 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 yep, it's ready, all synced up. Better hit a ball so I can show you all these bits. Okay, what happened there, Gans? Cool. So now, obviously, we see some different wrist conditions. My wrist conditions are different to what Scotty's are. He likes to have, I was the green, so I'm more that way. He likes to have more flat lead wrist. But now you're starting to get into the ulnar deviation too. And then you start to have all these graphs pop up. And in the graphs, you can see where my little flippy happens if it does post-impact. You start to get into all these data points that are just insanely interesting. You have your backswing tempo, your downswing tempo, and then like I said, you can compete all these situations, rate of rotation, everything starts to get the amount of information that it pumps out now. If you worried about it not giving you enough info, mate, it is wild how much information, and obviously you can review at any given point what your wrists were doing through impact and how they were all working. So there's just, you're not going to run out of information with this product. And then we jump straight into, from a coaching aspect, what you can do is I can go through here and I can quite literally benchmark whatever I want. If I want at the top, I can change the benchmark, and I can make the benchmark whatever I want it to be, quite literally. So I can make the practice session as anything as I want, which is wild that I can go through and create my own benchmarks. And this, I can actually start to build my own preferences. So what this means from a coaching perspective, or for an elite player perspective, is you can go through and benchmark a custom range, say wrists. I want it from here to, say, I want it to, there's my range, flexion, blah, 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 blah. Cool, exit, and then suddenly I have my own benchmark for address. This means, as a preference as a golf coach, I can set this unit up to be what I want as a teaching tool. So if I have a preference in how I like to see players' wrists work, I can set all those benchmarks in here, and then the athlete in front of me can attempt to do these movements that I want that will probably match up with my other preferences in body movement and my path preferences. So from a coaching perspective, I've got a tool here that can give the player feedback. When I'm not there, it's getting their wrist action to match the rest of their movement pattern. As an elite player or a good player, you can hit a shot that you think, you look at that and you go, that is absolutely perfect, okay? And you can then look at the numbers and you can set that as a benchmark. Like those numbers, you can benchmark those numbers and go, okay, how do I repeat that to within the degree? Those are your benchmark numbers. So like, Because we've all had shots or have moments where you make swings on camera or whatever a day and you'll write down what were those numbers, what was my path number, what was my face to path number, what was my angle of attack. Cool. Those are my benchmark delivery numbers. But what have my wrists done to deliver that club in the same fashion every time? You can benchmark it in a situation, and then when you hit balls, you can benchmark it against where you were at and how you delivered that club in that certain fashion every time, from setup to at the top to impact. And you have that same pattern. Wow. And then obviously there's all these other feedback loops in this free practice where you can have a look at the speed of rotation, whether you want a faster or slower rotation of the club face, where the club is at both basically hand parallel into impact. That's your P6, P7, P7, P8. And then obviously your tempo, your timing, your rhythm. It has all that in there, in this area. So the basic side of it, very useful for both teaching players. Like that's where I've used it now several times with athletes. The basic guided thing is pretty much all I need for 99.97% of golfers. Just getting them, hey, look, this is what this feels like, and then let's go from there. And then also that feedback loop where I can just plug it in and they'll be like, way across here somewhere, and then I go, no, we're going to try and get it here. Ooh, man, they're happy days. They can feel where I want them to be. We're golden. So that basic thing, and then here, just never-ending story of information. As for the other parts, this app will just keep giving. I guarantee you, it's crazy. And I can assume it's just probably only going to get better and better as you have it. Putting, I have not even had the chance yet to get out in the greens and muck around with the putting, but I can assume it's going to get the situation where you get your wrists, you set your wrists, and then maintaining your wrist conditions. So that'll have to be another whole video that I do, is the putting side of this, if that has value. And then we've obviously got home. Now, drills. There is literally a library of drills on how to practice, and it guides your practice without, again, I can set a player up with this and then go and have a nice coffee and go, oh, yep, cool, are you getting better, yes or no? So it means you yourself at home can learn from it. So if you're struggling with wrist conditions, you have like the static at the top drill, blah, 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 blah. Yep, cool. It's calibrated already. Cool, so then you get in your setup position and then you just stay there. Come on, man. Do you not think I've got a club? So I get into there, good, and then I'd swing to the top, and then I'd feel the range, and then it gets you to do that a few times, right? So you go back, set up position, and then up to the top, and then I can feel where that is. Now, the beauty of this, and both with the guided practice, I find, is depending on how much extension I have in my wrist at address, it automatically starts to adjust itself. So I'll get a little bit more extension or a little bit more cupping in the wrist this time. So now when I get to the top, it's going to think that my wrists need to be in a different amount. And then if I have a very bodily wrist at address, let's just get to the point where it thinks I'm actually having a club, which I'm not. So now I've got a very bodily wrist at the top. It's going to be different again. So it automatically is taking into account my grip. I don't have to, it automatically is, and the same thing with the guided. No matter if you have a weak, neutral, or strong grip, it's creating this pattern, right? Which is pretty cool, to be honest, that it automatically makes that little adjustment, which makes using it dramatically easier. So that's just one thing where if you are a player that struggles with where you are at the top, it's going to give you this feedback in a training sense where it's taking you through the reps. And then it can literally take you through the process of doing a dynamic at the top and then a full actually hit the ball challenge, and you literally take your way through at the top and at impact. Those are the 2 points it kind of has at the moment. Obviously there's nothing there again to do with path because it's not registering a hand path or anything. But it has all these drills that it takes you through in the learning. And then obviously there is tons of content online as well. And there's a learning part within the app on how to do it. Plus, another value add, when you purchase one of these, they will give you a free half an hour yarn on the phone to get you set up properly, any questions you might have, how to use it, what to do. They are a very engaged business in their product, very much a service-based business, which is very cool when it comes to a tech company to find them actually reaching out to make sure the product works properly, not just selling it to you and see you later, alligator. So it's pretty good. So what else can I tell you? I definitely can recommend it. As I said at the start, it's not a one-shot miracle, okay? You're not just going to put it on and go, and just flush everything straight, unless your swing path is already perfect. And the only thing you need to have better is your wrist conditions. Chances are, if you've been playing golf for a while and your wrist conditions have been out, you would have come over the top to facilitate an open face, then swing left, and then start it straight, and then it disappears right. So now that your wrists suddenly get into a flatter condition, you're going to find it interesting at first. But what it will do is it will give you feedback. I don't think it's the sort of thing you're ever going to outgrow. It's very comfortable to use and to wear. It's not going to give you as soon as you do it perfectly, it's going to give you a perfect shot, but it is giving you feedback that is pretty damn accurate and very easy to set up and use. Extremely beneficial. You can take it on the golf course too. Like you could go out and play golf, you can hit balls on the range. This would be helpful, wouldn't it? You can hit balls on the range, be like, man, I'm flushing it, and you can see your delivery numbers, and then when you go out and play, there's nothing stopping you, especially when you're playing a casual round with your buddies, to go out and play and put the monitor on, have the sensor on, and be like, holy, I hit this bad shot in the first, and then you can pick up your phone and have a look at your delivery and go, oh man, my wrists were totally different to what they were on the range. So instantly, you know what you need to work on to do better on the golf course. Like what's changing from the range to the course. That might be exceptionally beneficial information to have. It's very hard to walk around with a video camera and video every shot. Whereas this, you just strap it on, clip on your glove, hit it, and you'd be like, oh man, this changed when I was on the golf course. Plus, there's a short game and a long game thing. I haven't even mentioned that. So when you're hitting a pitch shot, if you're struggling with your pitching shots and you're like all over the place, it's going to give you feedback as to your short game delivery as well. So the fact that it's versatile, it's light, it's easy to use, it's giving you accurate feedback. You know, it's, as far as training tools go, it's certainly up there. Well worth looking at, whether you're a beginner, an experienced player, and certainly a golf coach. Very handy tool. Reach out to the boys at Hackmotion, have a look at the product, buy the product. If you don't like the product, I assume there's still, it's like a 30-day money-back guarantee or something. It's could be a game changer for you. Check it out.